Hello everybody, it's me, producer Ross, and welcome to another video on Kings of Anglia. Today I'm joined by good old Harvey. The January transfer window is open, my friend. So in today's video, we're going to look at the hits and misses of the window for Town through the years. So let's get into it and talk about the first player. So Harvey, we've got 5 hits and 5 misses. We're going to start off with a hit. And firstly, we have Alan Lee. Good old Alan Lee. He signed from Cardiff in January 2006 for 100k when we actually spent a bit of money on players. Not a lot of money, but 100k, not too bad. He was Joe Raw's last permanent signing. He scored 4 goals in 14 games for the rest of that season. And he also went on to become top goal scorer in his first full season. Jim Magilton's first season in charge, 17 goals. Your memories of good old Alan Lee. Can you remember when he signed and, in a way, we needed a striker who could score goals?
Yeah, I mean, you make reference there to the 100k we paid for him. I think you'd struggle to get a player of that quality for that amount of money now. And Alan Lee, you're probably looking at probably a good few million in today's market. So I think that shows the kind of the difference in the transfer markets now. But he was a brilliant player. You know, he was your old-fashioned kind of target man, almost a dying breed really in today's game with all the teams wanting to play out from the back all the time. And like you said, he was exactly the kind of player we needed at that time. He was a bargain, and he turned out to be a real good value for money because even now he's really well thought of at the club. And he was a great servant playing in the 4-4-2. You know, you could always, once we got the best out of him, especially in the season where he scored all those goals. He was an outstanding player, and as I said, we struggle now. I think any club would struggle to get that many goals for £100,000. It's pretty much impossible these days.
So Harvey, the first miss then, it's Kiefer Moore. Oh dear. 10k from Forest Green Rovers in January 2017. 11 some appearances in total. He wasn't very good, was he? But he's doing okay now. Your thoughts on him?
Yeah, where did it go wrong? I think if you asked any Town fan at the time during that spell whether he'd be a £2.5 million Championship striker and leading the line for Wales, they probably wouldn't have believed you. But I was at the Preston game where he came on at Deepdale and he was awful then. And he's, fair play to him. He's really kicked on. He's one of the first names on the team sheet for Wales. He's doing really well in the Championship with Cardiff. So, McCarthy clearly saw something in him, and he's proven to be a really, really handy player. Again, we mentioned Alan Lee earlier in terms of a dying breed of kind of target man strikers, and he's one of them as well. But if, as I said, if you'd said to me that he'd be this kind of prolific almost at this point of in his career a few seasons ago, I wouldn't have believed you. But yeah, fair play to him. He's done really well, and it's good to see him doing well for Wales as well.
So we're going to move on to a hit again. This time it's John Walters. He signed for us in January 2007 from Chester, who were in League 2 at the time. He played well against us for Chester in the FA Cup. He then went on to score 4 goals that half season before then becoming top goal scorer in his first full season, and then went on to become captain for the club. What a player John Walters was, Harvey. Your thoughts on him?
Outstanding. Yeah, again, you talk about value for money. He was 150k well spent. You mentioned the games against Chester as well. I was actually at the 0-0 at the Diva Stadium in that FA Cup tie, and it was one of the worst Town games I've ever been to. Me and my dad were both at that game, and John Walters was the pick of the bunch. He missed his sitter with, I think, about 20 minutes to go. He probably should have scored, but he was outstanding that day, and we should have lost. But yeah, onto Walters himself. What a player he was. I mean, whether he played as a striker, there was a period he played out wide as well on the right, and I think during both of those times he was just as threatening. He was an outstanding player. It's a shame that his last spell kind of didn't tarnish it, but it was a shame that it ended how it did. But another player that's always well thought of by Town fans, and it was great to see him go on to make a career of himself in the game.
So from John Walters to the next miss, we have Feliciakoski, the Macedonian Gerrard. He signed for us in January 2008 for 500k. So a bit of money spent on this man. He was signing from Turkish side Beresspor. And, he didn't hit the heights we were probably hoping for. 43 games in total, 1 goal. What's your memories or Felicia?
Yeah, it was more like the Macedonian Scoot in the end, wasn't he? Really, rather than Gerrard. I think with signings like that, I think fans immediately kind of get excited, especially because we don't normally recruit from foreign countries or from foreign leagues. So naturally, you're hearing all these good things about him. You're probably looking him up on YouTube, looking at his highlights and getting excited. And I think he did show glimpses of quality. The goal against Blackpool was a brilliant strike, but arguably he wasn't good enough, was he? I know he went to Preston after us for 400k, so it wasn't too much of a loss on him. So it's a shame it didn't work out, but ultimately not good enough, unfortunately.
So let's get into the third hit of the video, and it's Jimmy Bullard, the man signed on loan from Hull City in January 2011. Maybe one of Paul Jewell's decent signings, definitely on loan anyway, because we had so many loan players during his time at the club. But yes, Jimmy went on to score on his debut, then 5 goals in 16 appearances during his loan spell. Won't talk about his permanent spell because that wasn't so good. But Jimmy Bullard, what a character and what a signing this was.
Yeah, I remember at the time being really excited. I think as fans, coming from the Premier League, he's had an England call up in the past, so I think he was, he was an exciting player. He scored goals from midfield, which we still haven't got now, arguably. I remember the goal against Cardiff live on Sky, which seemed like it took an age to go in, but what an absolute worldly strike that was. I just said it's a shame that it didn't work out for him when he signed permanently, but that seems to be a kind of common theme really with some of our players. But in the main, he was, those 3 months, that 3-month loan spell where he won Player of the Season, which probably tells you the kind of season we had. He was outstanding, and he was one of the first names, if not the first name on the team sheet during that spell.
So the third miss is going to be a harsh one, but for the money that was spent on him, I think he has to be in the misses, and it's Luciano Chevelli, signed for $1 million from Batford in January 2009. And, Argentinian player. Once again, we've got a history with Mauricio Taricco. What a player he was. But Chevelli, of course, he had his injuries, only made 17 appearances in total. So a big loss, and the money we spent on him. Fondly remembered, very, a hard-working player, but injuries did cost him his time at Town. Your memories and thoughts on him.
Yeah, the unlucky number 13 is what springs to mind. His shirt number while he was at Town. Again, he was a player that I think we were all excited about, a bit of the unknown capacity on him. But he was just unbelievably unlucky. It wasn't necessarily a cluster of injuries. He had one injury which put him out for 18 months, I think, and he just never recovered from it. I think, to be honest, once you have an injury like that in your career, it's difficult to recover. But he's another one where, if you talk to a Town fan about Chevelli, he's highly thought of, and it is a case of, as you said, what if? If he could have been really good during that spell, but unfortunately the severity of the injury is what cost him.
So let's get into another hit. This time it's a player that's also been plagued with injuries and he's still at the club, and it's good old Emmy, who's the man who signed in January 2017 on loan from Cardiff. He then eventually signed permanently for that loan spell. He was very fondly remembered for those goals he scored and also just his appearances in general. He made 13 appearances, scored 3 goals in that loan spell, and then signed permanently that summer for a 4-year contract. And what a marquee signing that was that summer. Very exciting. Probably one of the last signings Mick McCarthy made on a permanent deal, and did it right. And somebody signing permanently after a good loan spell. What's your memories of good old Emmy Hughes? Yeah,
he's that box-to-box midfielder that we were lacking. The goal against Villa, the goal against Newcastle, they both kind of spring to mind straight away. It's just a shame to see his demise, really. As you said, in that loan spell, he was outstanding. I was absolutely delighted when we signed him. I think all summer we were calling for him to be signed, and the Ipswich Twitter feed made a big thing about it when we did sign him. And as you said, it's not like us to give 4-year deals. We don't do it very often at all. So it shows that what we thought of him at the time. It's just a shame now to see injuries that have probably caught up with him. There's definitely a player in there still, but to me now he seems afraid to make a forward pass, which is a real shame because it would be good to get him in some sort of form towards the end of the season to get him a contract extension. Because as I said at the start of it, during the first loan spell, he was different class, and adding a bit of balance with that left foot as well was brilliant for the team.
So let's get into a miss up next, and we have Ryan Stevenson, 50k from Hearts in January 2012, one of Paul Jewell's random signings. Stevenson only made 13 appearances, scoring 1 goal. It was a belter. That's probably what he's remembered for. But your memories of Ryan Stevenson, a midfielder, but he then went to return to Hearts basically that summer. So he was at the club for just 6 months. So there's not much to really remember from him, really.
Yeah, like you said, just that goal, and what a goal it was. It was one of them where, from the start of his town career, it was quite obvious that he possibly wasn't good enough. I felt sorry for him because I seem to remember he was played out wide a lot of the time, where arguably his best position was in midfield, but I think he was kind of shifted out wide, during the majority of those appearances. But remembered for that absolute rocket he scored. But apart from that, most certainly a miss.
So the final hit of the video is good old Freddie Sears, another player still at the club. He, of course, signed from Colchester for 100k in January 2015. When we were trying to get into the playoffs, we were still there and thereabouts. But, of course, fans were shouting at Evans and Mick McCarthy, we need to sign players. And he was one of them. And, of course, he did hit the ground running, scoring, decent amount of goals. And we just about got into the playoffs. But a very good signing back in January 2015. And he's done okay since then. Of course, he's had his injuries, played out wide. But he's done okay, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think he's done really well overall for 100,000. I don't think we can complain too much. Last 18 months or so, he's not been the same player. I don't think you can argue with that. But when he was playing in that 4-4-2 under Mick, I think that was when he was playing his best football. Unfortunately, then he was put out wide. He kind of had a little bit of a resurgence under Lambert when he first came in. He was given a little bit more freedom and a little bit more license to get forward. But it's a shame, really, because I think the injury he suffered has kind of caught up with him a little bit as well. I never think that he's actually going to take on a full back, which is quite important if you're playing on the wing. So it's a shame, but he's overall, I think, for 100,000, he's been a great servant for the club. Hopefully, he's got a little bit more to offer.
So the final miss is good old Frank Nouble, signing from Wolves for 25k in January 2013. Of course, re-signed by Mick McCarthy. He made 60 appearances, scoring just 5 goals. A player that tried his best, but just wasn't good enough. He's doing well, though, at Plymouth, currently in League One. But during his time at Town, he wasn't so good, was he?
Unfortunately not, no. He had that game against Crystal Palace where he turned into Messi for the game, where he scored those 2 goals. And I remember being at Blackpool away where he scored as well. But another one, really, that just wasn't good enough. He was put on the left quite a lot, I seem to remember as well, where he just wasn't a left winger. But it's a shame because, as you said, now he's playing for Plymouth. He seems to have found his level. He's doing really well there. He played against us recently in the League One campaign, where he was holding the ball up really well, bringing us into play. So he's clearly got the talent there, but it just didn't work out for him at Town, as it didn't at a variety of other clubs. But it's good to see him settled now at Plymouth, and Ryan Lowe seems to be getting the best out of him.
Definitely. So there we go then. 5 hits, 5 misses. I'm going to add some more names in there. The likes of, this is the honourable mentions. David Norris, David McGoldrick, Richard Sturman, David Wright, Alan Judge, possibly. Then the dishonourable mentions, you can add Alan Judge into that if you want to. There's also Simon Dawkins, Stephen Gleeson, Paul Digby, and there's many other names you can probably chuck in there. And let us know. Harvey, thank you as ever for joining me, looking at the hits and misses of the January transfer window for Town. Hope you've enjoyed the video, guys, and we'll be back for another video soon. See you later.